This is Prime Sports Network, and you are watching an Our Lads Football Network production. I could actually say the other way around, too. It doesn't really matter. The bottom line is Prime Sports Network and the Our Lads Football Network have been together for several years now. First year for our video shows, and don't forget, for anyone watching on YouTube, to subscribe to our channel, and you'll be able to get notifications whenever these programs are available, including this one, OFN NFL Preview with Mark Lawrence at Playbook.com, and Mark will be with me for another 6 weeks after this to continue our divisional previews, AFC East in the books from last week. Mark, this week it's the NFC East. Before we get going, I want to remind everybody about Playbook because that's been on the newsstands for about a week now, right?
It has, Greg, the Playbook Preview Guide magazine on sale at Barnes & Noble, Books A Millions, and other independent newsstands. If you can't find a copy there, you can always log on to our website at playbook.com and we can ship one out by priority mail.
All right, so right there, showing everybody the Playbook. So that's what it looks like. You got Patrick Mahomes on the cover. And don't forget, too, you can order a Our Lads NFL Draft Review Guide. This is out as well at ourlads.com. But once again, Mark's Playbook magazine is not only available on newsstands, but how they could also, they go to your website to order it, Mark?
Yeah, you go to the website, just log on at playbook.com. You'll see banners for the magazine. Just click on the banners, and it'll take you directly to the buy page. Or if you can't do that, log on. You can always call our office. The number is 1-800-PLAYBOOK.
All right, we'll be back on Wednesday. We're doing it Thursday this week. We had some scheduling differences. Sometimes that does happen, but bottom line is we'll be on every week. And then once these previews are done, that should put us right about a week or two before the season begins, as long as it doesn't get delayed. And then we'll have a complete, final 2020 preview. We'll give our predictions and so forth, and the odds might change a little bit. But the odds don't change too much now, do they, between now and week one?
No, they don't, basically because there's a lot of limits on the odds, and the limits are there because nobody knows for sure if a 16-game schedule is going to be played, if it will be a condensed schedule, so forth and whatnot. So they're holding limits rather low on future bets when it comes to the National Football League at this point.
Okay, so if this was a non-pandemic season, then how much would the odds change, or how much could they change between now and the beginning of the season?
Well, that plays hand in hand with what happened in the draft and what happened with, obviously, in free agent signings. The first team we're going to talk about, the Dallas Cowboys, enjoyed a terrific draft.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and their season win total opened the highest in this division at 10 wins, accordingly so. So, a lot depends upon what's going on off the field to determine what the odds will be by the time they play football. So not so much this year, as we alluded to before, but the bottom line here is Dallas, indeed, right now, will be the favorite in the NFC East.
Yeah, they're a small favorite over Philly. Right now, Dallas is even money to win the NFC East, 7-1 to win the championship of the NFC, and 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. I still think that 7-1 is even a little bit lower than I think it should be, because the Cowboys, I don't even remember the last time they were in a championship game, let alone winning the championship. But I don't know, 7-1, they're a good football team. We're going to get into that. I just think there's a lot of history there that says that 7-1 might be a little bit of a low number to get to the Super Bowl.
Well, a lot of this is based upon the new head coach hiring of Mike McCarthy. And again, what they did in the draft, they did some really nice business in the offseason here as well. But you have to remember, take this with a grain of salt, that this is a Dallas football team that in its franchise history has won more than 13 games only one time.
Yes.
So going into the season here, it's America's team. Everybody wants to get on the Dallas Cowboys.
There it is.
Before Bill Belichick and New England came along, it was always the Dallas Cowboys. So they're a very, very popular team, and this year it won't be hard for the public to be riding the Dallas Cowboys right from the get-go.
And last year we had so much fun on the Jason Garrett trends. It's over for us, Mark. No more Jason Garrett trends.
Yeah, it's a little bit over for us. I mean, he's still in this division. He's still going to call shots with another team inside this division here. So we don't have those direct shots or hits we can take at him,
Yeah.
but he will have some familiarity, obviously, with a lot of these teams that the New York Giants are going to be playing here. The one thing I want to point out here about Dallas, though, Greg, is that last year, first of all, they're the only division in the National Football League that did not have a 10-win team last year, the NFC East.
Wow.
It's probably because they were mediocre, and it's also a little bit to do with the fact that they beat each other up with regularity last football season here. But when you look inside the numbers of the Dallas Cowboys, if you put tape over the name of their team, you would insist that they were a 12-win football team last year. Yeah, when I'm saying that is that they won the yards, they outyarded 14 of their 16 opponents they played last year, yet they only won 8 games. Now, what was the reason for that? We talked about it earlier, the clapper. He's no longer here. And I think Jerry Jones came to the realization that, hey, we can't keep performing the way we did last year and keep losing football games in the manner in which we did. So that's a big reason he's gone, and Mike McCarthy is now in at Dallas.
Yeah, this might be one of those coaching change deals where the Cowboys, if they're going to benefit from it, they benefit from it immediately. We see that happen sometimes, that quick change to a different coach. For whatever reason, it just works. They were just missing something, and then boom, everything falls into place. I'm not the biggest Mike McCarthy guy, never have been. All those years with the Packers, they won 1 Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Those should have been better. And it wasn't just okay. I'm not criticizing his play calling or things of that nature. I just thought the team could have been a better team, could have been led by better men, especially at the coaching department. But again, that's why I said it's a change of scenery. He's been able to recharge his batteries. There's a lot of talent on this football team. And once you get past the Eagles, there's not a lot of competition.
No, there's not. It's going to be a 2-horse race basically in this division here. And you mentioned Mike McCarthy. Now, he also, remember, he had Brett Favre as well.
Yes, he did.
So he didn't really win enough games for the 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that he was a coach of. And in fact, with Green Bay, in 13 seasons, he won 6 NFC division titles.
Yeah.
Enough to make the playoffs 9 times. So, the numbers were okay for him. They just didn't rise to the level of expectation. And I think that was a disappointment in Green Bay, and it was eventually was vented and frustrated by, if you will, Rodgers. And that's the reason he is now the coach for the Dallas Cowboys. And sometimes when you have a new coach, it's a win-win for both the team and the coach. And I think that might well be the case with Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys this season.
Yeah, when you take a look at some of the other key things that the Cowboys did, not only did they at least lock up Dak for 1 more year, and that might actually end up as another Kirk Cousins scenario. Who knows? But they also 5-year, $100 million deal to Amari Cooper, so he's locked in. Then you take a look at adding some. No, we have no idea what they're going to get out of Aldon Smith. Now, it could wind up being a godsend because we know he's talented, but it could also just be one of those, Randy Gregory situations that, his name is on the Cowboys, but we're never going to hear from him. But you take a look at the key add-on is Gerald McCoy. And that guy is really talented, and he was kind of lost last year, away from Tampa to Carolina. But, Poe's a decent player, but McCoy's the big one. He's the big prize in free agency.
Yeah, they were both number 1 draft picks, McCoy and Poe both. And he also brings in Clinton Dix over from Green Bay. So there's some connection between McCarthy and Dix in that signing as well. So all in all, between that draft, which is I think maybe the top draft in the league this year, and this pretty solid offseason free agency signing here, this team has to do nothing but improve this football season here. And that's what makes them, I think, the choice to beat in the NFC.
The thing I'm a little bit concerned with, though, is that the cornerback situation, you lose Byron Jones. The secondary was already the kind of weakness of the defense, and they're going to really rely on those rookies, those rookie corners. Definitely need those kids to step up. But Jones is a big loss, and it'll be interesting to see actually how Jones plays with the Dolphins, because Jones is one of those corners that really excelled as a zone corner, the way the Cowboys play defense. He's going to be asked to play more man defense with the Dolphins, so that'll be interesting to see how that works out. But that's a Miami Dolphin deal, not a Cowboy deal. And also the Cowboys are going to be relying on Greg Zuerlein now as their place kicker, and considering how unpredictable it's been for them the last few years, you would hope that's an upgrade.
You would hope it would be. Their field goal kicking has been, it's like ping pong. You never know whether the ball's going to be over the net or not, through the pipes or not. One other thing, alluding to, as you mentioned, Byron Jones and the signing by Miami, they did draft Trevon Diggs
Yep.
from Alabama, a cornerback, and I think they're going to count heavily on him to fill some gaps in that secondary. So look for him to be an important cog in the Green Bay defensive attack.
Yeah, Diggs, and they also like that kid Robinson from Tulsa.
From Tulsa.
Yeah, I thought he might have been drafted a little bit higher, but they really like him. So, yeah, they're going to need those kids to definitely, at least one of them, including most likely Diggs, to step up. Okay, the Eagles.
I think so.
The Eagles are next at plus 140 to win the division, 10-1 to win the championship, and 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. Look, this is all about Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz has got to stay healthy. That's been the knock on him since college. The kid just can't seem to stay healthy long enough. And now with no Nick Foles, that makes things a little bit more interesting, which is why they went out and drafted Jalen Hurts. And I got to tell you, I'd like to know who they were thinking of drafting instead of Hurts for me to weigh whether or not that was the right call. But I would say 80% of the time I would agree with that move. I think it's a very smart move. You have an injury-prone young quarterback that's going to be here for a long time. You've had major investment in him. You decided to go with him over Foles. You must have a young quarterback that you can groom. If anything happens to Wentz, then this could be your guy. And I think it's the perfect draft pick at quarterback for the Eagles, considering that scenario.
I agree 100%. I thought it was a terrific draft selection. And remember, this is a Greg Peterson move. He's a quarterback himself, as a player in the National Football League, and he's had backups that he's had to rely on throughout the course of his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they've come through with flying colors. Nick Foles takes him to the Super Bowl. You know what? You alluded to the Carson Wentz injury situation here, and this is very, very much a copycat league. Whatever works for other teams do and want to replicate. New Orleans, they see what's happened in New Orleans with the Taysom Hill situation. So now here, all of a sudden, I think Hurts comes in and plays this exact role at Philadelphia. He'll be groomed that way, and should anything happen to Wentz along the way, I think he'll be ready to step right in.
Eagles did lose more than they gained in free agency this past year. The secondary is still, it's a revolving door. There's pieces here, there's pieces there. This year, it's the addition of Darius Slay. This is one of those situations where, again, scheme hurt Slay last year with Detroit. So they're hoping that change in scheme, and remember, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles was the coach with the Lions, Schwartz, when Slay was there. I think he was actually the head coach when they drafted Slay in the first round that year. So there's familiarity there. They also added Will Parks, a very good slot corner in Nickel Roby Coleman. So they just have to try and find a way to get that secondary right.
Yeah, and if they can do just that, that'll be favorable for them, because last year this defense really improved. They were 36 yards a game better last football season here. Didn't really show on the scoreboard. They had an equal amount of wins, 9 wins, 10 wins the year before. It's this offense that is going to be the main concern, the main cog for this football team. And I'm going to throw this note out there also, Greg. We've alluded to this a lot in the Playbook Preseason Guide magazine, and it applies once again this year. It's been 15 years since a division champion in the NFC East has repeated as a champion in the NFC East.
There you go.
That's the ghost hanging over the Philadelphia Eagles this particular season here. So, will they snap it this year? That remains to be seen. But that's one of the reasons the Dallas Cowboys are the favorite to win this division.
Yeah, you would think that's as good as a trend as that's out there at this time of year. That definitely favors the Cowboys. What I do like also with the Eagles, what they did with the receiving unit, it was banged up last year, and it was kind of an overachieving unit anyway. So now you don't have to worry so much if all of a sudden Jeffrey misses a couple of games, because at least you have a little bit more depth. Now, the whole Deshaun Jackson thing, I don't know how that's going to distract them. I think because it didn't happen during the season, I think that's going to be forgotten when the season gets underway. I really do. So I'm not worried about that. Greg Ward did a really good job when he was called upon with the injuries. I'm a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside fan. I was actually surprised that it took him as long as it did for him to kind of look like he was working his way into being a regular NFL player. But as we talked about last week, hey, NFL receivers, a lot of times their rookie season, it's hard to catch up with the NFL quarterback, all that kind of stuff. There's so many things going on there. So I think Whiteside's got a great opportunity to have a big year or two. Rager's their first round draft pick. They add in Marquise Goodwin and Miles Sanders in year two. So I think all around, I expect this offense to be a lot more dangerous this year.
It could well be, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to go on record and say that Deshaun Jackson will not be on this team by the end of the football season. Yes, I'll go that far.
Beginning of the season.
By the end of the season.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay. And I think he'll end up shooting himself in the foot between the start of the season and the end of the season. That will be it. Jeffrey Lurie did not take to the anti-Semitic comments well
Why
at
should
all. Well, number one, it was offensive against him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right.
I'm actually surprised that all that has come about it has been a fine. Deshaun Jackson's lucky.
Yeah. He's terribly lucky, okay? And what you've also got is another receiver on the team in Alshon Jeffrey that he's been trying in the worst of ways to trade this guy and unload that contract. So he's got a delicate situation to balance here. Does he keep Jeffrey, eat the money and put up with his crap, or does he eat the Deshaun Jackson and put up with his crap? I don't think it's a comfortable situation for Jeffrey Lurie this year, and they're going to count heavily on Jalen Reagor here. That's the reason he's a speedball, and that's the reason he was the number one pick for this football team. This all happened before the Deshaun Jackson stuff hit the fan as well. So as far as Jalen Reagor goes this football season, will be as far as the Philadelphia Eagles go. He'll be a big go-to guy.
And like I said, too, I think that makes Whiteside an even bigger asset this year than maybe he could have been counted on during his rookie season. And look, maybe the fact, especially being in Philadelphia, maybe the fact that we don't see fans either for a half a season or a whole season, maybe that benefits someone like Deshaun Jackson for home games.
It might. It just might do just that. I know the Eagles fans, they kind of go against the grain anyway, and they always did like Deshaun Jackson, even when he got in all that trouble. And, he's trying to, for all intents and purposes, appear to make amends here right now. But, whether it sells or not remains to be seen. But I'm going to, like I say, I've got a real good source in Philadelphia that tells me he's as good as gone. So we'll see whether or not that pans.
Yeah, all you got to do is look at that movie, the Bradley Cooper movie. The one with Robert De Niro.
There you go.
Yeah, and he was all over that movie. They were wearing his jersey. They were referencing
Silver Linings.
Yeah, they were referencing him in the movie. So that shows you how much, like you said, he was beloved in Philly.
Yes, he was.
Or maybe he still is. Who knows? We'll find out. Okay.
Well, he's the Allen Iverson of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Perfectly put. Yes. All right, the Giants 8-1 to win the division. 50-1 championship. That ain't happening. Neither is the Super Bowl at 90-1. But as we mentioned last week, there are going to be some teams that are going to have it most difficult during the pandemic, the shutdown, not having an opportunity to get in there with the team and start to learn from each other. This might be the number one most difficult position you have put a coach in all of the NFL, Joe Judge, because not only you're looking at his age and experience overall, but first-time head coach too. Then you've got the whole pandemic thing. Then you've got whatever's going on with DeAndre Baker. That has just been a disaster at this point in time. So this is just not good. And you got your quarterback in year two. He's got to learn another system. There's a team that you want to bet against early in 2020, it's the New York Giants.
It most likely will be the New York Giants. Nothing works well here. It's going to be difficult for most new head coaches in the National Football League here this year, given the fact that it's a new playbook that the players have to adapt to. They're not going to have the proper spring camps and training leading up into the season to get that down. They're also not going to have the full use of their draft selections like they normally would, the full complement. So that makes it very, very difficult for rookie head coaches here. And then You've got, the situation where is Daniel Jones ready
Yeah,
to be a National Football League quarterback? He looks
sure,
the
I
part,
agree. Yeah.
okay? Yeah, but when you start analyzing the numbers, my God, I mean, he had 18 fumbles, 38 sacks in 13 starts last year. He's got to protect the football better. That'll never wash if it's going to happen for him. I think the one thing, and this is really, really difficult for me to say, but the one thing that's going to help the New York Giants this year is having the clapper on the sideline, Jason
Yes.
Garrett. He knows the division inside
Smart
and
move.
out. He's always exactly right. He was always been an offensive coordinator throughout
Yep.
his career, and I always thought he was the epitome of the Peter principle, where he advanced to the level of incompetence as a head coach. Now he goes back to a role that he's most comfortable at, and I think that'll benefit the Giants tremendously that way this football season here. So, if it weren't Judge, a new head coach here, I would say the Giants have a chance to surprise this year. But given the situation being what it is, it'll still be a tough row to hoe for the New York
Yeah, some of the
Giants.
key players, of course. I mean, look, smart move by going out and getting your left tackle of the future, and with fourth pick of the draft, Andrew Thomas. They added 3 offensive linemen in the draft, which all of them could end up starting by the end of the season. You added 4 rookie linebackers late in the draft, but guys who could definitely contribute. You have Blake Martinez and Kyler Fackrell, especially Martinez was a big signing for them. James Bradbury now becomes more valuable than ever with the Baker situation, and they felt really lucky to draft Xavier McKinney with that second round pick. So
Yeah, that was a plus.
yes, so I
Yes.
think they had a pretty good draft. There's more talent here after free agency, and but it's just asking a lot considering the scenario, the whole situation we talked about with the offseason, the way that it is.
Well, let me say this as we close out on the New York Giants here. You've got a team here that, if you look up and down their record and you look, they're only going to face 6 teams that had won last year.
Yep.
So, that's sort of a semi-soft schedule, if you will. They're also going to take on the AFC North this year. And in their career, all-time at home against the AFC North, the Giants are 6-2 straight up and ATS. So, who are those AFC North teams that they could benefit beating? Cincinnati, on the road at Cincinnati, that wouldn't be a huge or major upset, to say the
Mm-hmm.
least. And if the Cleveland Browns come in the same condition this year that they were last year,
Yeah, you
3
never
weeks
know.
left in the season, they could take them out in November up in New York here. I mean December here as well. So, the schedule
What
works well
don't
for.
they open with Pittsburgh?
They open at home against Pittsburgh.
And
So
that opening game, especially without preseason, anything can happen.
absolutely anything can happen. Pittsburgh's got Big Ben back, but it's not going to be a Big Ben that's going to be in any kind of condition at all. I mean, he's had a chance, obviously, to lose some weight and heal up in the offseason here, but he's not, nobody, he, like any other quarterback, is not going to be sharp. And especially quarterbacks that missed most of the season the previous year
Yep.
don't tend to look to be sharp early on as well. So a good scheduling spot right there for Pittsburgh at home in game 1 for the Giants.
Yeah, overall though, first half of the season, you want to wager against the Giants. Second half or final quarter, yeah, I could see the wagering turning around and saying, okay, everybody's starting to learn how to play together, the coaching staff and so forth. And I could see this team being a dangerous team, especially with that schedule in that last month of the season. Somebody
Yeah,
you
look
want to
at
wager on.
right. Look at after Thanksgiving. They're going to be playing Cincinnati, Arizona, and Cleveland. There's a good chance
Perfect.
to win 2 of those 3 games, and
Yep.
if they do, if they get some momentum, maybe they win all 3 football games. So, the bottom line to this team is, when the season opened originally, their season win total was 6.5 wins. I was pretty excited to go over those 6.5 wins with this team here because of a lot of what we talked about. That's not going to be in the making or even in the offing right
Yeah.
now because of the schedules and the situations. But I still think this team has a chance to be one of the better teams in the league. They were tied with the Chargers last year as the worst team in the league in net turnovers last year. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that you will almost always find a return to the norm in turnovers from one season to the next when it involves extremes. When you were the worst, you improve mightily. When you were the best, you decline mightily. That could also benefit the New York Giants this year.
Okay, and the Baker thing is just, I don't know what to think about that. I just want that over. Because I'm not even All I'm doing is reporting on that. I'm not taking a side because I don't trust anything I'm hearing with that. It's almost like the COVID numbers. I don't know who to trust. Just whatever. Just make a decision, and then but you get the feeling no matter what, it's not going to look good for Baker's playing status at least early this season.
I don't think so either. But another, I think, positive note for the New York Giants here this year just might be the complete maturation of Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
He's been in the league for a couple of years right now, and I think he's a horse.
Yep.
And if he ends up asserting himself this football season here, he'll take some pressure off of Daniel Jones and off of Joe Judge as a head coach here as well. So if he improves, you can mark that down, Saquon Barkley, so too will the New York Giants.
And we mentioned not only the 3 rookie linemen that they added, but of course Thomas. They signed Cameron Fleming to play right tackle, it looks like, but Nate Solder's still there, so he'll probably play somewhere. Will Hernandez, it's time for him to step up. And Zietler was a really good pickup in that trade, the Odell Beckham trade. So, yeah, their offensive line is going to have more talent than they've had in years.
Yeah, they will, and they're going to need it. They're going to need to protect Jones to allow him a little better chance, to not turn this football over here. He's going to have to improve himself, but he's going to also doesn't want to be hurried every time he's dropping back in the pocket. Those hurries cause turnovers, they cause drops, they cause sacks. So as much as that offensive line can improve, so too again will Daniel Jones.
All right, we'll wrap it up with the Washington Redskins, 12-1 to win the division, 75 and 150 for the rest. We know that's not happening. We know there's a name change, so that's for sure. There was some story that was supposed to come out today. Did it come out today? There was some sort of big story that was going to come out either like against Daniel Snyder or against the organization.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was, I've read it, and the person that sent it to me said the source is not the most reliable source.
So what happened?
Well, they're alluding to the fact that Daniel Snyder was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here the ball rolls right now. And there was also ugliness about the Washington Redskins and the cheerleaders and the crap that he allowed to happen to the cheerleaders. And, this is all not good news for this football program here right now. And if any of this stuff is true, it could end up being a former owner, Daniel Snyder, of the Washington Red Tails, because the National Football League is not going to stand for any of that.
All right. Well, we'll see. He doesn't have, unfortunately for Daniel Snyder, he doesn't have a lot of fans or support on his side.
No, he doesn't. That's for sure.
That's going to kill him in the media. And but look, everybody deserves the benefit of the doubt, and you never know in today's media climate what's true. Like you said, you're not sure about this particular person who wrote the story, so we'll see. I don't know. What's your gut tell you?
Well, my gut tells me he's not liked for a reason, okay? He's supposed to be very, very difficult person to warm up to and very self-centered and very, very wealthy, and those are all common denominators with the likes of a Jeffrey Epstein, and if he was indeed any at all related to any of the off-the-field shenanigans that happened here, it's a death knell, I think, for Daniel Snyder.
Yeah, bottom line is, though, there has to be a smoking gun with something like that.
Yes,
just being a friend of Epstein is not enough.
It's not. I mean, if it were, we'd be talking about a lot of presidents and people that it was associated with them, right?
So that's, yeah. All right. Anyway, back to the field. Ron Rivera, the hiring of Ron Rivera was something that Daniel Snyder did right. And I think
it was a great move. Yes, I agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so now it's the perfect time, too, because he's got a young quarterback in Dwayne Haskins to groom. We'll see how that all works out. Scott Turner, I don't know. I still think that that's such a big responsibility for an offensive coordinator with not a lot of experience at that position. And Jack Del Rio is also the defensive coordinator of the team. So I think, look, staff-wise, it's going to be up to Scott Turner, especially because of Haskins.
Well, you mentioned Jack Del Rio and the defense, and he also brings Chase Young into the mix.
Oh, yeah.
Who many people think was the most talented player in the draft this year. So that makes suddenly their front seven as good as about as anybody in the league. So, those are all huge building blocks, Ron Rivera type building blocks for a football program here.
Yes.
And if they can at all improve this defense any whatsoever, it's going to be very beneficial. My main concern to the team, though, is I am not a big Dwayne Haskins fan.
Yeah, neither am I. Yep.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I was a big Ohio State fan, and yada 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 and all that stuff. But I was never impressed with him at Ohio State either.
Yeah, he seemed like he was a system quarterback. That's all. He was able to stand back there. He had all day to throw the football. He had talent, but he didn't have first round talent. And look, he slipped for a reason. He slipped even in just the first round for a reason.
He did. I think he's a statute in the pocket, and which is not a good omen for a quarterback in the National Football League. It didn't really appear at Ohio State because he had athletes up front in a wall protecting him at Ohio State at a college level, not so much so at the National Football League level. So they're going to need to obviously improve his game. He's got to step up dramatically here. That way, I think to be a factor. But surprisingly, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't go for some more quarterback support, because I know to a man they're not 100% sold on him, and they're going to start the football season with him. So it remains to be seen whether or not he'll be the guy and what he can do. But right now, I'm not ecstatic about him at all.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that, look, even though there was a new head coach, those situations with hey, I didn't draft this quarterback. So that's always, and Gruden was, of course, an offensive quarterback guy. So, look, I think maybe this is one of those situations where they're going to give Haskins, maybe he only gets a year for them to say, all right, whether or not, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of him, but maybe they look into the 2021 draft and say, we need support. Or maybe there's a player out there that they can bring in, a veteran player next year in 2021, and say, okay, we'll start the season. We'll give him one more chance. But now we have a lot more going for us as a backup. Because like you said, Kyle Allen, look, for a couple of games, Kyle Allen's proven he can help you. But Kyle Allen is not, as he proved last year, he's not going to help you past that. And unfortunately, unless Alex Smith has a medical miracle, he's just there because he's on the books.
Yeah, that won't happen with Alex Smith. I mean, he's just happy to be alive right now, let alone playing football. It's his dream to do so, but I think he also realistically realizes it's probably likely not going to happen. So you get back to what it is you have, and I don't think Kyle Allen's the answer there as well either. I mean, capable backup, yes. Starting quarterback, doubtful. I don't know if all that's going to work into the mix or not, but I'll just keep the ugly tabloid stuff rolling here as well. In that conversation about Jeffrey Epstein and Daniel Snyder, so too was Jay Gruden's name mentioned in that same context.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. That'll go. Well, at least he's gone.
Yes.
Now, don't forget, Trent Williams, of course, was traded to San Francisco, so he's out of the way. They added two new players at the offensive line, Lucas and Schweitzer. They might wind up starting on the left side of the line as far as free agents. They also added veteran Thomas Davis, another Carolina guy, linebacker. Kendall Fuller comes over. Ronald Darby is also going to help out in the secondary. I think that the two guys that I'm intrigued with the most at running back, you guys, Geis and Bryce Love. Both kids, tremendous talents that have these injury issues. If they can get either one of those players healthy, that could be a dangerous asset to have in the backfield.
And what that means basically, Greg, is if you do not see Adrian Peterson in the backfield, it's because you're looking at Darius Geis or Bryce Love.
And that's a good thing.
And it's a real good thing if it happens for them that way. So, that's a positive for the football team, and I'll go with that. I want to ask you a question here. What is your vote? And I know there's odds being bandied about the new nickname for the Washington Redskins. If you were the owner, if you were Daniel Snyder, what would you opt to change the name to?
Well, on the OFN today, we had Ken Marangolo from hogshaven.com, editor. He was with us a couple of days ago with Ryan Dunleavy, and we talked about the whole Redskin deal and the names, and we went over it. And so I gave my favorite name out of the list. It doesn't appear that that's going to be the name that they're going to go with, but I'm 100% on the Hogs. I think it's a perfect situation.
On the Hogs?
The Hogs. It's just called the Washington Hogs. They've got the whole. I mean, we're old enough to understand how much that represents the franchise, the Hogs. They still have Hogs fans in the stands, so it's still with them. But it just seems when I say that, I get, I get backlash as, that's never going to happen.
Well, I don't think it will either. I know you might have been semi-influenced. I don't know because you were interviewing a fellow from a hog nation. But to me, I think my way of thinking is if they name this team Red something anything, it'll keep in line with Hail the Redskins, and it'll keep that same theme song in line. So I'm going to say Red Tails.
What are the other ones that
Red
they've
Hawk.
been talking about?
What's that?
Some of the other names. Have you seen some of the other names that they've said
Well,
that
yeah,
are in the running?
Red Tails and Red Hawks are
Oh,
real
Red
popular
Wolves
right
they
now.
had talked about too, right?
And the Red Wolves, right. So there's 3 Reds in the running right now.
All right.
So, that be what it is. And if it's not going to be a Red, the Hogs could well be adopted very easily by the fans because, as you mentioned there, that's what they've been to the fans. They've been the Hogs. And, that might end up selling well with the fans. And I mentioned I'm from Cleveland, and I'm really, really up against it and really, really unbelievably scratching my head that the Indians are going to think about changing their name. And I just don't find the Indians to be a disparaging
No, I don't even know where that's coming
name
from.
any way whatsoever. There's nothing disparaging about that. I think this is going way, way, way too far. And if the Braves don't change their name, why do the
Yeah.
Indians have to change their name? I mean, I just don't
I
get
mean,
it.
what do you
really
want them
don't.
to call them? The American Indians? I mean, that's Indians. It's short. It can be short for American Indians. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about here. See, when people talk about Redskins, they can talk about. I think sometimes what seems so obvious gets lost, and it's like, look, if you really do want to understand why Redskins would be racist, it's the word red skin. Okay, pale skin, dark skin, red skin. You're talking about
So
somebody's face complexion. That's
it's
racist.
identifying a person by their skin, and
Yes.
that's what the grudge
Yeah.
is. The same thing with Black Americans today. So, but I don't see it
With
identifying
Indian. Yeah.
Indians or Braves or Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs. My goodness, I mean, what is disparaging about that? I don't get that either. So, we're just living in a different society today, right now, and maybe I'm a little bit too much old school,
No,
but
it's. I don't think
there's
anything. Look, I think it all depends on who's leader. Because if they're, because look, unless there's a lot of corporate people within the Cleveland Indians, because we know that this wouldn't have changed with Snyder if it wasn't for FedEx. So same thing. Unless the Cleveland Indians have some major sponsor, what is it? City Field? What is that? City? What is City Field after?
it's Progressive Park
Progressive
for the
Park. Okay,
Progressive
they changed their names so
Insurance
many
Company.
times I can't keep count all over the country. But Progressive. So what if Progressive comes, oh, we have a problem with this?
Well, that's what the issue is going to be. If they lose a sponsor, that's where it's going to get really, really uh, knee deep in the situation or the sense. I was tremendously disappointed when they dropped Chief Wahoo. I thought it was one of the most
Yep.
recognizable logos in all of sports, and I still don't to this day understand why it was dropped. Maybe because the chief would, like to tilt a little bit, like the Suggs. I don't
I
know
don't
what
know.
the reason there was, but everybody in amongst the Cleveland Indians fans all wore Chief Wahoo
Yeah.
hats and gear, and it's just. And I'll tell you this too: when I go out, I still have my Indians hats, and when I wear them, right away I'm called out about, "Oh, you're from Cleveland. I love the Indians." Blah 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 blah.
Sure.
Not you're wearing a Wahoo hat, and how could you be doing that?
Yeah.
That's not even thought
Yep.
about.
Yeah.
So, we're getting off on a
No,
little
that's
political
okay. I mean,
run.
it's the end of the show anyway. Everybody's tuned out. But
Yeah, there you go.
but the other thing that I was talking to Ken and Ryan about regarding the nickname change was because they were listing those names, and I was like, I used to think that when you named a team, like the nickname of a team had to be representative of something in the area. So when they were talking about like say Red Wolves, I was like, so Ken, are there any Red Wolves in Washington D.C. that I'm unaware of? And so of course that wasn't the case. So that's the thing that I mean, shouldn't that be obvious that if you're going to have a nickname of a team, the nickname should have some sort of representation of the area?
I think it should, and that's one of the reasons the Chicago Blackhawks are not going to willingly let go of the nickname Blackhawks, because that Blackhawk tribe is centered around that area, and they feel that they're calling to the fact that they're representing them in the best way they possibly
Yep.
can. So they're going to be adamant about not changing that particular nickname.
Okay, so last thing then, let's get back to basics. We said there. Talked about it with the AFC East. We'll talk about it with every division. Right now, is there a wager in this division? And obviously, it's the Cowboys or the Eagles. Is there a wager that makes a lot of sense right now with either the division, the championship, or the Super Bowl?
Well, I would think it would be the Dallas Cowboys, number one, because I think they have more going for them than the Philadelphia Eagles do. You've got that ugly stat I told you, 15 years in a row for Philadelphia.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you've got that to work against.
And even money is okay. It's not bad.
Even money is okay for a team that is improved, at least on paper, as dramatically as the Dallas Cowboys have. And I love the fact, and I do this every year, Greg, is I look at a football team and what they did last year, what were their merits last year. And this football team, like I said, won the yards decisively last year. 14 out of 16 games, they out-yarded opponents here. That almost always works in their favor the very following year.
All right, so I would agree with you. The Dallas Cowboys at even money might be a good way to go. As far as championship and Super Bowl, if I was going to do one of them, I would consider definitely championship. I just Super Bowl, that's getting carried away. But you never know. Championship is not a bad idea. I'd still like a better number than 7-1.
Yeah, I do too. And, again, I'm going to go back to the fact that this division does tend to beat each other up a little bit. That's the reason nobody won 10 games last year. I don't think that'll be the case this year. I think Dallas will be the guy to lead the pack that way. So all they have to do is to make the playoffs, and if they make the playoffs, you never know what happens getting to the Super Bowl.
And if they win that division, then that's all we also have to worry about. We cash our even check, and then like you said, yeah, you never know. Maybe in the playoffs with the right coach, different attitude, then maybe they can end up in the Super Bowl. It's quite possible because the San Francisco 49ers will be talking NFC West football in a few weeks. Let's remember, it's not easy to not just think about getting back to a Super Bowl, but it's not easy to get to the playoffs the next year when you've lost the Super Bowl.
No, it's really, really difficult. And when we talk about them, we'll get into detail just about that. And there's also other factors that I can go real deep in about the San Francisco 49ers underperforming this year. Some great stats I've got, and I'll share those with you when we do that NFC West preview.
All right, so next week we are going to talk AFC North football on this show. So we've got the AFC North next week, and then the NFC North coming up in a couple of weeks. Actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I do have Jeff Risdon, who covers the Lions. He does great work with USA Today covering the Lions. He's our official Lions analyst. He's going to talk NFC North football with us this year. So I have an interview scheduled with him next Tuesday. So we might as well on Wednesday do NFC North just to keep it consistent. So we'll do NFC North next Wednesday, Mark.
That sounds good to me, Greg. Whenever you're ready, we'll rock and roll.
And then let's get the college football season started too.
Why not?
That's another hour of conversation.
Yes, it is.
All in itself.
Yes,
Thanks, Mark.
Hey, my pleasure, Greg. As always, be well, stay safe. I'll catch you next week.